Welcome to Unfuck Your Life and Relationships with Anita Astley, psychotherapist and author, and Ryan Rosmann, recording studio owner and music producer. This is a podcast like no other. Sit forward, listen in, and get ready to get unfucked from the inside out. Unfuck your life! Unfuck your life!
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Unfuck Your Life and Relationships. I'm your host, Anita Astley, and in studio we have Ryan and we have Amanda behind the computer doing all the digital stuff. How are you today, Ryan?
I'm a little tired, but I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm awesome. I'm always happy to be in studio. My favorite place is behind the mic, talking to you guys about all the things that are going on out there in yourselves and also in relationships.
Yeah.
I want to share that the last episode we did on online dating was very interesting, and the feedback was very exciting to hear from my followers on Instagram and Facebook. The comments and questions that came in, I was like, okay, so this does support some of the data and some of the research. And I was reading more articles on this kind of just to keep up to date with what is really going on out there with regards to studies and research. So let's get to it. Today, awesome. I'm sad to say we're going to share some negative stuff. So even though last week, you and I and Amanda, we all talked about, both of us, the positive experiences we've had. Because you had some negative, but overall positive.
Overall positive.
Yeah, and then you guys met each other through Match.
Yeah.
And I shared about how my experience was pretty positive, but sadly we don't represent the general population.
Oh.
Facts. We don't.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. So a lot of the research and my clinical work too with people in my office, it's pretty negative in terms of the psychological impact on people's self-esteem and their self-worth and how they use apps. Does that surprise you guys? Or
I mean, I get it. You know, you're putting yourself out there, which already is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are literally, by the number of whatever likes or favorites or messages, sort of like have a score of like how well I did.
Yeah.
Like, or how I am currently in the eyes of the dating pool. And it could be positive or unfortunately negative.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
It is it's very hard on our sense of self. And although, I talked about the pros and cons, we're going to talk a little bit more about the cons today. It can do a lot of harm to us in terms of how we feel about ourselves physically, emotionally, harms us socially. But it's not going away, right? So my attitude about it is, listen, it's not going anywhere in light of this research and all the findings, just like smoking, right? We know it's bad for us, but guess what? People still smoke. People still do that stuff.
Which is still wild to me when I see people smoke cigarettes nowadays. I'm like, first of all, they're like $170 a pack.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's like, you can't do it anywhere. And like, we know that there's nothing good about that.
So it's the same thing. So I wouldn't say there's nothing. There's some good things about it, but overall, the research findings are that it's negative. So it's not going anywhere. So our job, my job, especially in the office, is to help people navigate and negotiate their way around these apps. Now,
awesome.
Tinder, you guys, I'm sure have heard of Tinder. Tinder has over 50 million users. It's the top growing app on Apple, more than Candy Crush. I've heard of Candy Crush and I've seen people play it, but I've never used it myself.
Yeah.
And Netflix, which I was really surprised.
More than Netflix?
I was really shocked by that number. Bumble is close to 40 million. So
no, Bumble's the one where it's like the woman has to,
I don't know. I've never used Bumble. It has
to like be the one to message or whatever, that it can't be the opposite.
Yes. Yep.
Is that what it? Yeah. I have like.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I've only used Match and eHarmony, so I don't know about Bumble, but I've heard of it. So anyway, those numbers just tell us more and more about how we need to learn to navigate our emotions with these apps, because people are using them, and we're not going to stop using them. Trend is going upwards. The average user spends, what do you think? How much time per day on an app, dating app? Any guesses?
Oh my gosh. I bet
2
it's
hours.
Yeah, I was going to say an hour or two at least, right?
Something a lot.
No, it's probably
Something
more.
that
It's
seems
probably
like
more.
a lot.
Apparently, it's 90 minutes, but I think
Oh.
people are lying.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't think people were truthful about that. 90 minutes? No, I think it's a lot longer.
But I would be interested to see, like, you know, how your phone can tell you how many pickups you've had. Like maybe it's 90 minutes as the aggregate total, but it's like because you're doing it in 2 to 3 minutes, but like throughout the course of the entire day.
Yeah. And how did they define usage?
Right, exactly. Right. Like only the actual moments. Like
Yes.
how many times an hour are you checking
Yes.
something like that? Does it become compulsive that you're like, oh my God, I got to check if I have messages or whatever it might be?
So we have to, of course, enter it with caution, just like some of the tips, use some of the tips that we shared last week, or I shared specifically last week about entering this game. And, the fact that I even said game, I'll get into that a little bit later, with your eyes wide open and being very mindful and thoughtful about yourself, but also with other people, because I still believe that it cannot replace the in-person flirtation that is exciting. No, I don't know. What do you think? Flirting online is so different to flirting with somebody physically when you see them.
I agree. I was thinking, I have a friend who had a real bummer week with some online dating, and she has now sworn it off. She was like, I'm done, right? Which you can't just be done, but I'm not going to tell her that. Like, that's where she's at right now.
Can you share what happened or no?
I think I could. I even chatted with her a little bit about that. But she went on a second date with this guy. He was super excited. He said things like, he wasn't really talking to other people, and really, she was really excited about it. And they had plans to go and see a movie. And then he sent this text that was like, I'm really sorry to do this. But I guess the attraction just isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else? I'm trying to think what else it said. And then it was like, for what it's worth, it's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And it was just like so sad. This friend of mine is so brilliantly funny and talented and incredible. And I can see where it's like hard for her to meet people. It's hard just in general. So of course, online is what she's going to default to. But that's like, how, does that mean that he's like doing all kinds of scrolling? She has no answers. And I can see how much that hurts her.
Yes.
And I can tell her till I'm blue in the face, like it's not about you.
Yeah.
But that's not going to, I don't think me just saying that to her is going to help that sink in. I think she's still feeling that. And I think it really, frankly, it sucks.
It sucks. And to use words like, I think we need to be very cautious to use words like, I'm not attracted to you. And what does that mean? Attracted physically, attracted emotionally. And did he really need to say that to her? Because that's very hurtful. And she'll carry that, like you're saying, she'll carry that hurt within herself. And then how will she behave in the future with regards to these apps? It's the repeated exposure to rejection and comments that are really hurtful. I think a better way of communicating that is, we're not compatible, and we had some fun, and I'd like to move on if you don't mind. It was nice to get to know you, and thank you for that dinner, drink, or whatever they enjoyed together. But be very mindful about the language that you're using to communicate that to somebody else. Again, it's a human being behind the profile, and your friend had gone on this date already with this person. Why not just say, you know what, you're a really great person, but I don't think we're compatible. But to use strong words like that, because I've worked with people like that people have said those words, and it's very damaging and hurtful, especially if they already suffer with other mental health issues and already are feeling very insecure about their appearance. We don't need to be hurtful.
That's tough. I feel like there are so many people who are just like, that's just how I talk. I'm a straightforward person. And that's
you're just
you're a jerk.
You're just an asshole. And maybe that's why you're still single.
You can't handle my sarcasm. You're right.
Yeah, maybe it's not sarcasm. Maybe you're just an
nobody
asshole.
needs to handle this. That's so messed up too.
It's mean.
Like,
we don't need to be mean.
Why
Don't be
use
mean.
words that are unnecessary? Be like, I don't want to waste your time. I think you're great, but like, I'm not feeling it that way. Like, and if I got a text like that, I'd be like, cool. Like, maybe I don't want to be friends with you because I rather would have, been with you, and I don't want to like hang out with you where I have feelings that are unreciprocated, but at least you're not going to be like, dude, everyone's self-conscious about how they look. It doesn't matter how in shape you are or how, whatever, any of the things. Everyone has feelings about that.
Everyone does. And that's one of the negative things about it is there's a lot of focus on what people look like. And this is not positive for our self-image if we're already struggling with, say, we're struggling with weight. There's so much pressure already to be a certain weight as a woman, and particularly negative impact on young women who are already struggling with identity formation and loving themselves, loving their bodies. And then we have this kind of talk going on. And I just think we don't need to be mean. But I want to tap into what you just said about, he said something about it was fun. So in doing it,
it was straight wrong. Like
what?
Hooking up was cool. Like thanks for like what the fuck? I mean, is that what it means?
It just didn't come off right. It's like for what it's worth, it was fun.
For
like
what it's worth, what does that mean? And maybe it's worthy of a phone call and not a text message.
I want to talk to this dude and be like, what were you fucking thinking?
Yeah.
And what if you got this text message?
Yeah.
Like, did you just really not realize? Because maybe like sometimes, especially when it's not in person, like things can get, like we were talking about this before, get a little bit lost in translation. You can't interpret tone from a text.
Right.
Like maybe like it wasn't meant to come off that way. Right. And that can be a super negative thing too, where like things can get lost in the translations.
Yeah. And so I think, if you've been on a date already with with a person and you feel like, okay, this is not going any further for whatever reason, I think it's worthy of a phone call. So you don't have this text message and there's all kinds of miscommunications. And I could read that a million ways if I'm already inclined to think I'm not attractive or I'm not fun and people don't like me. I already have that issue. Then that will put me in a negative downward spiral. And I don't think I ever want to have that impact on somebody's life. So pick up the phone and just say, it was nice to get to know you. Thanks for the drinks and dinner, but we're not compatible and good luck to you in the future. That's perfectly fine. You're not attacking their physical appearance. You're not attacking something about their personality. Who the fuck are you to judge somebody? You're on the dating app too, looking for somebody. So clearly, and you haven't found that person, you need to look within yourself. But I want to comment on, Amanda, you said there was the word fun. It was fun or something. What did he say to her in the message?
I think that was it.
Something
it was like something like that. It was, for what it's worth, it was fun.
Yeah. So the Tinder the Tinder CEO stated not long time ago that the number one reason people reported using Tinder was for entertainment purposes, fun, as opposed to looking for relationships. So this taps into exactly what you're saying. People are using some of these apps as a game, that it's fun. And some, I don't know if people reported this clearly, validates and supports that finding, but I don't know if most people are. And I'm inclined to think that most people get on there looking for a connection, but there is a certain amount of shame and embarrassment when they're not successful at it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
You mean using something like Tinder versus like going on
or just even in general.
Well, in general, these dating sites, and I know there's different ones that appeal to different things. Like it's all about what you're looking for, like we talked about last week. But I think most people are looking for a connection. Just from my work with people of all ages, they're looking for a connection. But sometimes that just comes across nefariously, or it just is not authentic. And this whole thing about having fun, we all want to have fun, and even the traditional ways of finding a partner dating are supposed to be initially fun. If it's not fun, then why would you go on a second date? Why would you go on a third date? So I agree that, there's a certain amount of fun, but I think even in that, we're looking for some kind of connection, even if it's friendship. And it might not be marriage, because people are not getting married like before. The number of people getting legally married has decreased. But it's interesting to me that, what happened to your friend, and the CEO of Tinder himself said, hey, it's not a relationship site. It's more of a let's have fun. But I'm not really sure myself in terms of just speaking with people whether they're just having fun. Because to me, it's like if I have fun with you, and I'm on a dating site, I probably want to have a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Why wouldn't I?
I think most people, although I know that I think the way I think, and then I've met other people and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of ways to be a human.
Yeah.
I think there are probably some people who are, a little bit predatory.
Yeah.
If we're going to, throw some words around that are out there just trying to, get as many notches in the old bedpost kind of thing. And that's what they're on there for.
But then though, don't you feel like for the most part, even someone that's like, I'm only on Tinder because I'm just trying to hook up with as many people as I can.
Yeah.
The right person comes along, like, they're still probably open to the possibility.
Sure,
I think so.
But it'd be great.
Maybe you could still be in a relationship. Because, like, at the end of the day, there's maybe only like a very small percentage of people that are like, I will never get married. It can't happen. And that's actually true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's looking for that connection. And there was another study that I came across, another research article called The Big Tinder Project, led by Dr. Timmersman. She developed what I think was very interesting, the Tinder Motive Scale. You guys should Google that, which supported the CEO's comments that love, out of 8 of the things, was only 4th on the list for common motive. The other ones were amusement, desire to socialize, and curiosity. The curiosity is an interesting one, especially if you haven't been in the dating world for a long time. Like I was talking, speaking of my own story, 32 years, same person. So there is a sense of, oh my God, let me see what's out there.
Right.
And that's what I did. And it was kind of fun. But at the same time, even for myself at the beginning, it had a negative impact on me because I was, one of the negative things about it is having a sense of overload. I was overloaded and I didn't know what to do with that. It's like being at a buffet and you want to try it all. And then you're bloated and you're like, why the fuck did I do that? It's kind of the same thing. My mind was bloated and too full of information. And I saw all these people as being human beings looking for other connections like myself. And it kind of made me feel depressed at first. So one other negative impact of it can increase depression, anxiety, in the sense of being overloaded by information. But again, the information is so sensitive because these are human beings behind all these profiles.
It's hard with some of the apps, especially things like Tinder, where it's like you are just right, left, whatever. Like you're so quick to dismiss like a lot of humans with feelings.
Yes.
And I'm sure, for men, it's a little more swiping without matches than for women, just inherently just the way this works. But still, like, I feel like it's always a disproportionate amount of matches you're getting based on how many times you're swiping, whatever the direction is. I know Tinder for me was very quickly like, this is not going to work. Because especially once I matched with somebody, I was like, I don't even know what to say now. Because it's such an odd like app too. Because I specifically was looking for a relationship too, though. But man, it certainly doesn't make you feel great about yourself. Like, why am I not getting more of this?
Yes. So that feeds into your lack of, if you're already suffering from a lack of self-esteem, self-worth, it feeds into that. So I'm just going to list them and then we can talk about them.
Sure.
Because there's so many, but then I think, oh my God, I'm not trying to be negative. This is the data that's out there. This is research, scientists, studying all of these kinds of things that should somehow help us to deal with these things. But again, like I said at the beginning, we know smoking is bad for us, but we still do it, right?
Yeah.
So at the end, I'm going to give you some tips, of course, on how to unfuck this kind of stuff, unfuck your mind around all this. So negatives, again, focus on appearance, a lot of focus on appearance rather than personality. So our sense of vanity, and then we have unrealistic desires based on these pictures. It's a non-emotional online communication, bottomless pit of promises. Consequences are these inflated egos. There's a hunger and desire for compliments and validation that should maybe come from the inside, but now we're constantly seeking it through shares, likes, comments, right?
Yeah.
And then we get caught up in our appearances so much so that it can increase, especially young girls, the body dysphoria. Am I too big? Am I too skinny? My boobs are not big enough. My butt now with this whole, I don't know if you got the booties, right? I'm looking at some of these pictures online. I'm like, girl, what are you thinking? Too big, too small. So all these insecurities we might already have, just these unrealistic expectations about our bodies. increased anxieties, depression, and other mental health issues if you already have some. Like your friend, what if she already suffered and had so many rejections? Now she's got another one that seems ambiguous, kind of, and then you can read a million things into that. Fear of frequent and regular rejection is a huge one on dating apps. And then we talked about this last week. If we don't get a response, we automatically assume it's because we've done something wrong and there's something wrong with us, rather than maybe the person is just not on the app anymore.
Yeah, that's something that I never really thought about, is like maybe someone set up a profile and then just like didn't do anything.
Yeah, and I think I'm actually, to be honest, I think I'm still on because I have this subscription,
right.
and I don't check it anymore.
Like, would you and I could in one of the apps, like, does it like? Do you? I think I deleted my match like because I knew I was.
Mine is still on there, and I don't check it. So I'm just saying, I'm just not.
There's
active
probably a whole
anymore.
bunch of people that are like, "Why is she not responding to me? What is wrong with me?"
So it's not wrong with you.
You're ruining some people's lives right now.
I need to go on there and deactivate my account. Yeah. But again, it's another.
But you do pay for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, so I think I've paid for it, and it's on there, and I need to deactivate it. So again, on my part, there's no rejection going on. I've just delinquent with my account. But you're right. I should go on there because these guys are probably thinking, "Oh my God, what a bitch." I what does she think? I'm ugly, fat, not worthy. Who the hell does she think she is?
Right.
But it feeds possibly into a negative narrative that they might already have about themselves. And this, again, I love numbers, data, guys. 50% on Match and on Tinder do not message back, which explains feelings of rejection and hurt, and effectively feeling ignored or dislike. And that leads into feelings of feeling demoralized and lack of confidence to keep even trying to pursue another partner online.
No, definitely. I think that's interesting, going back to like the 90 minutes a day thing. Like when you talk about communicating via your cell phone or social media or any electronic thing, you always assume that people are going to be using it the same way you are. Where maybe like you don't even have push notifications on your phone, so you're only checking your Tinder or your Match or your eHarmony once a day. Yeah. And that's just how you do it. And you respond to a couple of them. Or some people, it's like the moment it pops up, you respond.
Yeah. Pattern of usage.
Yeah. So, but not everyone is different with that. And so if you're a person that you're always responding immediately and you're getting all those things, and this person is responding slowly, and then you're like, well, are they disinterested?
But that's one of the issues, like in our culture.
Right, absolutely.
In our culture and society today, we expect an immediate response, right? If I text you and you don't text me back, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Where before, when we just had phones, we're like, I'll get home and check my message. You guys are probably too young. But I remember.
Absolutely. No, I remember like
Do you remember
you
that?
call your, I mean, I had a cell phone by the time I moved out, but like my parents would call their answering machine to see if there were messages. And like, I definitely had that. And like, but I know I'm terrible. Like right now, if I open up my phone, I have 628 unread text messages, 240 like phone calls. Yeah. I'm so bad at responding.
But so if I don't answer him, I get panda.
And people know, like I tell people, if they know me, I'm like, everyone always texts me when I'm driving, and I try not to text back. I forget. I have a whole lot of stuff going on.
Your phone is pretty crazy.
I'm not great at responding to text messages.
But the fact that people even get mad at that or upset with it, before we didn't. It's this cultural expectation, societal expectation now that we will immediately respond. And if we don't respond, what's going on? And that sense of rejection when you're not responding or you're getting negative feedback on these dating apps people build then greater and higher walls around themselves because of this rejection, and those bricks get taller and taller each time. So that's not helping our psyche to be able to open up to new relationships and new experience. So we become very dismissive, and every human is like a swipe left or right. Yeah. And that feeds into the unrealistic expectations, we have of ourselves and also of other people. It's a very dehumanizing process. And it kind of led me to think about, when I was reading about this, to how I grew up. And I'm Indian, as you guys know. In Indian culture, we have arranged marriages. Yeah. And I think at the beginning, this was not that unappealing to me. I grew up and with my dad who said, when you're ready to get married, let me arrange your marriage. And I thought, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. And this is way before any of this dating apps or so forth. In India, they have the matrimonials, which are newspaper. You put an ad in the newspaper.
Really?
Yes, profile of a daughter, and then of course, you're kind of, promoting your daughter to some guy who's more educated.
In that arranged marriage, is there like the dowry thing? Is that real antiquated?
Well, that still exists, although there's a lot of shame and hiding of that, but that still exists. But when this all came into the world and we started using this, I'm like, okay, so it's just another form of the matrimonials in India.
Okay, interesting.
So maybe that's why I wasn't so offended by it, and I saw it as a positive experience, and my experiences have been positive.
Yeah.
But I thought, how interesting, and haven't we really been doing this for centuries? Now we just have apps to do them. Like if you think about arrangement of relationships, of marriages and so forth, I mean, it was not just people just married out of love. It was more out of property.
Oh yeah,
and division.
absolutely. Yeah, getting families together to consolidate power, wealth, land, whatever it might be. Yeah.
And I think so. I mean, thinking about these dating apps, I'm like, the Indians had it all figured out. And India had it all
so
figured out.
are you a proponent just for everyone arranged marriages?
Yeah, we should all have arranged marriages.
I honestly thought about matchmaking the other day, like with this friend of mine. I'm like, this is so sad. Like I have a couple of friends that are really incredible, single, available women.
Like you want to set them up with somebody?
I want to set them up, but I don't socialize and know people that are, but
there are companies where you can pay thousands of dollars to have, 5 dates, and it'll cost you, I don't know. Like I looked into this when I was entering the world.
Well,
official
matchmakers,
huh?
We have Diego. Should we just start sending Diego out on dates with people? we gotta have him back in here. I know we're so busy this week.
Yeah, he's the young one, out of all of us experiencing this.
I'd love to know what you think if we were just going to be like, all right, so now our project is to set everyone we know up with Diego, regardless of their age. Doesn't matter. Diego, you are going to be busy.
Yeah, you're going to be busy. We want you to go test out all this stuff and test out all these apps because they all, appeal to different kinds of people.
We're going to set him up with a dating profile that we manage.
Yeah, we're going to manage all this.
Oh, that sounds
high five, Diego.
Oh. And then we're going to share it with all of you guys. So getting back to the negative negative consequences of using these apps and using them too much. We were talking about the walls and how do we lower some of those walls when we're in real, authentic relationships. It makes it difficult if you're already a person who has these issues and then you're being rejected online. We kind of touched upon that a little bit last week, but that's a huge component in terms of how we feel about ourselves. Is this constant frequent rejection and perceived rejection. Because as I said before, maybe it's not about you, but what the other person is doing with their profile online.
Yeah.
Right? It can be a very dehumanizing process. And this constant comparison, I know when I was on there, I was looking at, other women my age, and I thought, oh my God, I don't, no matter how confident we are, we cannot help but compare ourselves to other people.
Oh, that's interesting.
There.
I never thought about looking at like the other dudes to see kind of how...
You don't want to see what else is out there, like your competition?
No, but it's an interesting concept and I can see why people would do it, especially, I mean, one, you could think about getting ideas of what you could do, but then also be like, what else is there? Like, how do I stack up? But man, that's so tough. Like, you can be at a bar or whatever it might be and look around at other people, but you're not like comparing yourself that big.
You're not comparing profiles like, okay, he does this for a living, therefore he makes this much money. I do this and I make this much money. And right away, we put people in a category.
Sure.
Yeah. So they did do a study comparing young college undergraduate students who used apps and who didn't use apps. And of course, the ones who did not use these apps reported a higher level of satisfaction overall about themselves and with themselves.
Okay.
And also the opposite sex. Interesting finding.
Really?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to, we know it's not good for us, but what will we do about it? Just like, so getting away from the dating apps, social media in general, I think is toxic. And I know,
absolutely.
and I am on there, but I only use it for work reasons. I was on there privately, and it was a mind fuck. And I thought, oh, I'm a therapist. I'm kind of above all this shit. No, it is a mind fuck for everyone.
Yeah.
Because we get into this, it's all about inclusion, exclusion, hurting people, loving others.
Yeah.
And then showing that to the world. I do believe that every post, every comment, everything has an intention, and it's not always good. I talk about about that in my book, Unfuck Your Life and Relationships, available on Amazon. But I talk about it and it is. And I have been guilty of that. And as soon as I came to that awareness, I got off. I'm like, I can't do this. This is like being in high school all over again.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be made to feel like that because I have so evolved and changed since then. But again, it tapped into that little part of me that's kind of still like that. Right?
Sure.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard because, you're like, there are definitely people and all of us that are like, well, this post didn't get very many likes, or my story, I normally get 200 views, but now it was only 80. Is my content not good? Am I not relevant? How many comments you're getting? And now I basically stay away from Facebook, and my Instagram is a couple of bottles of wine, the dog, and then stories of when I'm in the studio. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah, it's an overload.
Yeah.
It's an overload of everybody wanting to, people do want to know what you're doing, but do they really want to know what you're doing? It's the paradox of choice again. So much is out there that our system becomes so stressed, overwhelmed, and we lose sight of what we're really looking for. And we have these expectations that are unrealistic. And again, the swiping and the scrolling, it's bottomless pit. And we're looking for happiness. And what is all this happiness? Looking for it online through trying to find a partner when it's based on appearance. There are sites, though, like eHarmony, I think is really good and very strong. And Match, too, that they make you go through a very comprehensive questionnaire. I remember filling it out myself. I'm like, oh my God, what a pain in the ass.
eHarmony
was
the original one, right? That had the algorithm that is you answer all this stuff and we're going to match you, and it'd be the old white dude on the commercials and stuff.
Listen, let me tell you something. I was very successful with eHarmony.
Yeah, okay.
And that questionnaire, which was a pain in the ass and literally took me an hour to write, worked. I had these, dates where I was very compatible, and they're compatible with me. I was compatible with them. And now I am dating somebody that I monogamously that I connected with on eHarmony. And we looked at our compatibility score. I'm like, yeah, that totally rocks.
Now, are there going to be people that are just going to not be honest with you? Is there a percentage
I'm sure
of
people
that?
lie.
I mean, of course, but but why though? If you were trying to really... That's probably a smaller amount.
It defeats the purpose.
Right?
Why lie? But people do lie, as we talked about. They can be anybody they want to be or portray to be anybody.
Now, did it take you that long because you had anxiety about what
it took me probably a couple of months. But like I said, at 55, I know what I want and don't want, and I really followed, what I shared last week, which is you gotta text each other, then you got to have a phone call, then maybe for sure a FaceTime, and then an in-meeting person in a safe place. Yeah. And the phone call did it, because some of the men who were lovely messaged me, but when we had the phone conversation, I was like, yeah, there's no vibe here.
Sure.
Right away, there was no vibe. With this person that I'm dating right now, clicked on the phone right away, great conversations, and then, progressively leading to an in-person date. So to me, eHarmony is one of the best ones out there, just my personal experience, and then speaking to some of my clients and friends who've used it, because they are taking some of the focus off of what you look like. I mean, come on, let's not all lie. We're visual. We are, even in a setting where I see you at a restaurant or see some... Attraction is there's something to be said about, am I attracted to you physically? There's got to be something about you that I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
So let's not all pretend that, I'm not that shallow. It's not a matter of being shallow.
No, that's just our human nature.
It's our human nature that we're attracted to someone. But eHarmony does a great job. I'm not getting paid. I'm not
maybe
getting
we
paid.
should.
I was just thinking that,
let's get that sweet eHarmony money coming in.
Yeah, we should. Can you sponsor sponsor us, please. But they focus on getting more data on you and helps with the algorithm with the hope that you will find somebody that's compatible and then can lead to a long-term relationship.
Sure, absolutely.
Honestly, an hour to fill out a profile
It's not
versus how
much.
many wasted dates.
But again,
how much time,
that's
but
true. That's
again,
true.
it's a reflection. I'm part of the culture and society. It's I want it quickly and I want it right away.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is going to take, but it was worth it. And that's where you need to slow down and look at the apps and say, okay, which app am I going to go on based on what I'm looking for? So I wasn't going to go on Grindr because I'm not looking for that. I wasn't going to go on Tinder because of the reputation that I know Tinder has just from speaking to other people and reading about it. And I thought, eHarmony is the one that I'm looking for a partner, a relationship that's going to be maybe long-term. And it worked for me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, for now it's going well. But I also got wrapped up in all the negative stuff, like the paradox of choice, feeling overwhelmed, like there's way too much out there. And then unintentionally ghosting people, unintentionally rejecting people. And I also had that. People rejecting me, then I thought, oh my God. But then I thought, okay, maybe it's not rejection. Maybe it's just that they're not on here anymore.
Sure.
And some of them actually say when you last logged on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which I don't like either, because then you're like, oh my God, they logged on an hour ago and they haven't responded to me. This is horrible. It must
we have
be
enough
because of
things to overthink.
Yeah,
exactly. So you
There's
know what I
enough.
did?
Yeah.
On my profile, I actually turned that feature off because I didn't want people to know when I was last on. Because I didn't want to hurt them, because maybe I didn't know what to say. I don't know.
That's tough. And speaking of like real negatives, and I could admit something that was bad for a moment. And this was like one of the big impetus of me just getting rid of the app completely.
Yeah.
When you and I did that sort of, we kind of broke up but still dating thing, then like I went on the Match.com and like if your profile showed, it'd be like, oh, you were online like 2 hours ago. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like,
Yeah,
how are you
right.
dating me and going on Match still?
Yes.
Well, I'm like, well, first of all, I am. But you're the one that told me you didn't want to. You wanted to date other people, so I'm going to do it. But like that shit was tough. And I was like, I can't even look at it because I didn't want to put myself through that. So
but that's the mind fuck, right? That's the noise.
This person isn't responding to me, but they are on this, so they saw it. They had to have no. I mean, it's that.
It's
I'm sorry,
extra.
Ryan. I don't even remember it.
She
I'm
married
sorry.
you. Hey, in the end, she married you. It's okay. In the end, she married you. But look at.
Well, that's just more embarrassing on my part than anything. It's
no, but it's the mind fuck that goes on, and all the emotions and the psychological trauma that if you were not a secure person, and I know that you are, but even secure people feel like, oh my God, what the hell is this? It's that extra noise that's created in your mind, and now you're trying to make sense of this information that you only have from a computer. You don't know the rest, but what we do is we fill in those blanks with all the shit we don't like about ourselves, with all the things we think we're flawed in, right? We fill in that stuff, and that chips away at our level of confidence, chips away at our self-esteem, and then we end up thinking all these negative things about ourselves. And if we're already suffering from these issues because of our fucked up childhood or parents, don't blame your parents. I'm just saying we're a function of the environment that we grew up in. Especially, you guys know my story. I own that. It's very difficult. So we fill in the gaps where we don't have information. And especially online dating, there's a lot of gaps and there's a lot of shit we could fill that information with. And it's generally negative. It's not positive. One of my patients was saying to me, and he's a younger, probably about 20 years younger than us. And a very different perspective. He said, by the way, he loved our last episode, said it was very entertaining and informative. But he was saying, when I was talking about creating a profile that's attractive, he's saying, oh my God, Anita, I don't put that much thought into it at all. He goes, people my age, my cohort, he's in his 20s. Yeah. We just put like a couple of lines. He goes, that stuff was like totally wasted on me. And I think, well, yeah, because you're 23 and I'm 55 and our goals of being on here are very different.
Sure.
And he was saying that's a great way. Like I said, well, what do you put on there? He goes, just a couple of lines. And then people will reach out to me and we'll go for, well, it's not always a hookup. It's also looking for friendship.
Sure.
Well, I said, yeah, 23, you have different goals. 55,
Yeah.
you have less time. Market value is decreasing for me. I'm like, you're young. You're just a baby. It's okay. You can go to $1 million,
Yeah, well, once you're a certain age, it's like you're only really dating with the perspective that like whatever that person is could potentially be like your partner, like for real. Where when you're in your early 20s, like you can still like see if it works out and date for a couple of years. Like, I had a few like kind of longer term relationships that were whatever, just in my 20s. And like, that's, like you're not even thinking about like, oh, maybe you get married, maybe you won't.
No, you're
like,
not. And I always say, look, at that age, you totally are not. So have fun. But it was just interesting that they don't focus so much on the profile. They just put a few lines and that's it. I'm like, okay, well, that's because that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you have to know what you're looking for and be very mindful of which app you're using.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them have different intentions, right? What
I guess
are
that's
your intentions?
good that there's multiple then, because at first I'm like, maybe it's overwhelming, but you can narrow it down a bit.
And again, but I want to say the other thing is online, as in person, you will attract that which you are exuding. Think of that. Because people say, why do I always attract these people? What are you exuding? What are you putting out there for the universe that the universe is sending you these kinds of people, even online? Think about that. You attract that which you exude.
Everywhere you go,
everywhere you go, even online, huh?
I said, everywhere you go, there you are. I love that. I love quote.
That.
Like you're like, why does this keep happening to me? And it's like,
what are you projecting?
It's usually something that, I've had some big realizations where I'm like, why does it keep happening? I'm like, oh, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing. And
it's
it's really hard to see that sometimes. You have to, there are some lessons that I learned over and over again until they really sunk in. And I think that's one of those, like,
and then sometimes,
what are you putting out there that is saying that? Are you saying that that you're not sure you want to be in a relationship, but you really do?
Be honest with yourself before you're dishonest with somebody else too, right?
There's also that, like, with, as a woman, you don't want to come across as looking for something too serious too fast.
Why?
Because, that's really interesting. I conditioned for like ever to really believe that like men don't like women that come on too strong is definitely something that is, I don't know that it's true, but my brain definitely believes that
comes on too strong in which aspect?
Like don't bring up marriage on the first couple of dates, and don't bring up if you want children, and don't bring up that you're, don't be the first one to say, well, are you seeing other people? Wait for him to make those moves. And I think that's, and I do think that there are some men that are freaked out by that because they have been mutually conditioned. I don't think it's correct. I was a very forward teenager. And I did not play by those rules. No. But I definitely feel like there have been times where, men will recoil. So then should you be putting on your profile, like we think the best thing is to be really straightforward and really honest. But what if that's a turnoff for some?
Well, then that person is not for you, right? On my profile, I put exactly what I wanted and needed and want and need and expect at this age. It might have been different when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I don't know if I shared this with you guys before, I am not of this culture, and I still believe in chivalry. And I think that men should pay when they take you out for dinner. A lot of you guys might not like this, and then I had a few experiences where that did not happen. And I was like, no, I don't think that's a gentleman. I don't want to date somebody like that.
Yeah,
so I put that on my eHarmony profile.
Sure.
I did. I said, dude, if you're going to split the bill with me, because I had girlfriends who also said to me, yeah, this happened to me too. I'm like, oh, that's outrageous. I put on there, if you're going to split the bill, I will pick up the tab, but that will be our last date. #HateCheapMen. I put it right out there, and I'm sure a lot of men were turned off by that, but that's okay. You're not for me then. We are incompatible on that level.
Absolutely, because I think that goes to a deeper level of just who that person is and what their values and and everything else. And that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just that's what you want. Like,
different.
You want someone to open your car door. Like I'm into that. Like I do that stuff still most of the time. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've still paid for every meal we've gone to. Like, and it's not like because of some like you're expecting me to pay or you want this. It's just like that's just like what my core values are.
And then I'm not, playing games. I'm not on there to play games. So like we talked about, some of these apps, people use them. It's a form of playing games like Tinder, Comment. For me, it's not. I was very straightforward about what I was looking for. Like, and if it was somebody who's saying, "Oh my God, that's too strong and too upfront," well, then you're not for me, and we're not going to be compatible. We have very different morals and values, and that's okay. So move on, swipe away, right? But if you like the profile, stay and send me a message and work on it. But again, it goes to we have to portray who we are in our profiles. If we are looking to have an authentic and real relationship or just a friendship, one of the negative aspect of this is people don't do that. They're dishonest with themselves and they're dishonest with other people, and then they get hurt. And then, of course, that's a whole mind fuck. And then hopefully you have a therapist where you can go and get some help for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do believe despite the negative research, it can be a positive experience. We just need to learn how to navigate through this. So again, it is the number one way people date today. Are they going to stop using these apps because of all this negative research on our psyche? Absolutely not. So what should we do?
What should we do?
Number one thing we need to do, and this is also for social media usage, parents who come to see me and say, what am I going to do with my kid? They're always on social media and I'm afraid it's going to destroy their sense of confidence and so forth. You need to work on developing a strong sense of self.
Sure.
Strong sense of self, your identity. So it will not be destroyed totally by a comment, negative, by ghosting. You need to have a strong sense of self. You need to be grounded in who you are. And I know we all have peaks and valleys with our sense of self, our identity, because we live in the world and the world can be a difficult place to live in at times. But I believe if we have that, we are less impacted by the negative stuff that goes on dating apps and social media in general. And we're able to reground ourselves and reset when something bad does happen. What do you think?
What are some good practices for developing the sense of self? I even think just in general as any human, that's great, right? Like, I'm like, how can I?
How can I do that?
For myself, for my 10-year-old, like, what are some things that?
Well, it's different for younger people. Like for your 10-year-old, it goes back to, how you raised him, the values and the morals, and always instilling a sense of you are worthy. For children, especially, I love you, you are worthy, and all the behaviors and activities that go around validating that. Now, as older people like myself, I think, okay, my sense of self and my identity has my core identity is the same, but that's evolved over time. And through a lot of therapy where I feel stronger within who I am and I can stick to my morals and values. And of course I fuck up here and there, but I'm always trying to recenter it. As, I went through the divorce, I had like, oh my God, what happened? I thought I was like this person and all of this kind of shit happened to me. But again, grounding myself and okay, just because that happened to me, I still know who I am at the core, even though, shit happens and it kind of disturbed me, put me off my equilibrium. I knew I was grounded again. And with us, our age, it goes to how well do you know yourself? And how well you know yourself is going to help you to ground yourself in the morals and values that you have, your identity. Does that make any sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Always peeling those layers.
Layers. How well do you know yourself? Because most of us will blame other people. Most of us will project our shit onto the world. And if you get a negative comment, which all of us have experienced on social media and dating apps, or we feel rejected, ask yourself why that has struck a chord in you and why you're not able to move on, right? If something happens to me like that, I'm like, okay, it's a negative comment, but if it's striking a chord inside of me, then I have to think about what that comment really means to me, because I don't really know this person. They don't have a lot of value in my life, but why am I so upset by this? What does it strike inside of myself? Then I've got to work on whatever that is. That make any sense?
Which is empowering, because then it's within your control.
It's within your control. You are not
Which is so much better.
You are not letting that comment control your life and how you feel about yourself. You are going to explore and examine what that comment means to you, especially when it's coming from somebody you don't really know how much power it has over you. That's a you issue. So it's working on staying grounded, and that comes through having a sense of secure self, which is
most
hard.
Definitely. Yeah.
Nobody has 100% secure sense of self. Nobody.
For sure.
But if we can optimize on that, and the higher we can be on that scale, the more positive our experience is going to be with dating online and life in general. The other one is limit your time on dating apps. I know I started off with the 90 minutes. I don't really believe that. I think people spend a lot more time on dating apps and social media in particular. Limit your time. If you want to do it, I always say check it in the morning, maybe at lunchtime, and then the evening. But it's when I see people on it all, literally people on their phones all day. You guys, go anywhere in service industry, and I'm so glad I don't run a business where I have employees. I'd be fucking pissed half the time and fire everybody. Wherever I go and people are not actually doing their job, they're on their phone. I'm like, dude, just because there's no customer standing in front of you, you're still being paid by this person. Can you just clean or do something rather than standing there in the corner on their phone and ignoring me?
Right? Like, I understand, like, we don't, there's not the cigarette break anymore. And every once in a while, you need to have a moment to just check in with your life. But like, if it's just like, well, now I have a moment where nothing's going on. Got to pull out my phone until I have to. And then, you kind of lose track of the world. Like,
limit your time on social media and the phone in general, and particularly dating apps. Self-regulate. What does that mean? Amanda, when I say self-regulate.
I don't know anything about it. I'm just kidding. What is that?
Is that why you're out of control? No. Self-regulate, meaning, what you're talking about your kids, the best thing you could do, doesn't apply to this, but social media in general, is help them to regulate themselves. I remember struggling with this with my kids, like, oh my God, how do I minimize their time on their phones? Because it is so addictive, right? It's teaching them to self-regulate, because I can't be there to regulate them all the time. It's teaching them healthy habits around social media, their phone. And with you guys, we're talking about dating apps. Limit your time, regulate yourself, manage your emotions around all of that. Nobody can do it for you. And if you let it control you, it will. Control it through self-regulation.
Sure. I mean, that makes complete sense. If you're like starting to see that you're needing the amount of comments, or you're needing enough messages or whatever it is to like help fuel something that's like missing in you, then like that is not where you're supposed to be getting that from. And then you go back to like, well, I gotta build up more of my own self and that too.
And if you are not sure if you have issues with this is a way of good testing it. If you're out with somebody having dinner, lunch, coffee, whatever, and you have to pull out your phone and check this, you're not self-regulating very well. Because it is so rude. I find this phubbing, right? It's so rude to pull out your phone when I'm in the middle of a conversation with you, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what is this? Can you not be fully engaged with me? You have to pull out your phone. I usually say, hey, if my kids message me, I have to check the phone. Or if it's, I'm expecting a call from a patient or something, I have to check the phone. Otherwise, I don't. But if you're pulling that out because you're expecting a comment from on a dating app or whatever, that can wait.
Absolutely.
Self-regulation.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, you're not regulating yourself very well, because it's taking over time that you've set aside to have with somebody else.
Yeah, I especially like the dinner thing, when we're out to dinner and I look over and it's like every once in a while you got to grab your phone for a second. It's no big deal. But when you see it's usually a dude is like just like solo mission, like playing Candy Crush or some shit, and the wife is just
we'll be out to like Rare somewhere,
and you see
you're
her just
investing
sort of
in your dinner,
into this, like not like we're just gonna both pull out our phones, but just like being like, oh, this fucking guy is on his phone again. Like, what the fuck? Why? First of all, why go?
Yeah.
But goddamn, like how? That's just.
This is a societal issue, and we could do a whole episode
on that.
What you should not do with your phone and how you need to control yourself. Because I agree with you. When I go to a restaurant, I see couples, they're together, but they're literally not together because both of them are not looking at each other. They're looking down on their phones. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
So the
100%.
other one we need to do is to not to eliminate traditional methods of meeting other people. Go out into the world. And if you're not self-regulating well, you're not going to be able to do that. Go out into the world, in your community, put down your phone, go to a local event or something, go to a party, go out with your friends who say, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody, join a club, do something. The real world still exists outside and off your phone. Do that. Traditional methods still work and are fun.
Yeah, and I think also like it's good if you're going to be going on dates and meeting people online, like you need to have some social skills and those things and confidence and everything else. You can't just only be on your phone and expect to have these great dates if you're not socializing any other time.
How awesome would it be to be like, oh, we just met, at the Metro Market. Yeah, that was a coincidence. Because so many people, how did you meet? On Match, and I think it's beautiful. Like we have a beautiful relationship, but how fun is it? We met at the dog park. All those places.
Like there was a minute where I was like, because the studio we're in is across the street from a dog park. I was like, it would be awesome if I met some local lady just kicking it with their dog in the dog park. Like, how cool would that be? Like right across the street from work. Like that would have been an awesome story.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess.
But the fact that, you guys met on app.
Yeah.
I met my partner right now on an app. I mean, there are good things about it.
There's great things
and
about
we don't
them.
we're not going to represent, sample of the general population.
Yeah.
But I know lots of people who have met their current partner on a dating app. So like I said at the beginning, we're going to do this. We just need to know how to do it in a way that doesn't destroy us psychologically.
Absolutely.
Right? That's a strong word, destroy. But for some people, it does. It has very negative consequences on how they feel about themselves. So again, don't eliminate traditional methods. It is still good to meet people in public socially. But I want to tap into what you were saying about awkwardness. That was another finding. A negative finding is when people, after they've, communicated online with each other, they get together and they're socially awkward. The whole date is a fucked up, awkward mess.
Right.
But it's because they don't engage with the real world anymore, humans. And the only way to not have that happen is to rehearse your flirtation skills.
Yeah.
Is to rehearse, how do I talk to a guy? How do I talk to a woman? How do I do this? You're not going to know how to do that. And that's going to become very stale if you're just sitting at your keyboard the whole time. It's a rehearsal. When we go out into the world and we communicate with people, it's rehearsing our skills. No matter how good looking your bio is, your picture is, if you can't communicate well, that's not going to go too well. So we need to be out into the world, socializing with other humans so we know how to speak.
Right. And your date isn't just sitting on your phones. Like,
yes, it's kind of important.
Restaurant.
So, because people say, it's very awkward. I'm like, well, do you ever freaking go out in the real world and get off your computer?
Yeah, is it them or is it you?
You should offer rehearsals for people. Send some actors out.
Dating rehearsals?
A dating rehearsal.
Listen, we're laughing at it, but some people need that. It's called coaching, right? Let me coach you how to talk to a girl.
I don't think you can do that
because
it's like almost prostitution. But like
oh, yeah.
Well,
I already did that.
Okay.
It's just my dating rehearsal.
Hey, that's a good business. Maybe we should start that. A business, right? Amanda's available on Tuesday.
Yeah, we got Diego.
I'm a professional acting coach. So.
Yeah, she can give you some tips. Ask yourself what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Ask yourself what you're looking for. So you can minimize some of the disappointment that people feel when they are actively dating online. What are you looking for? Because maybe you need to really go deep inside of yourself. If you're looking for fun, okay, that's fine. But where is that going to lead to, right? And that's all a function of how old you are. Like my young client said, yeah, that's all I want. But other people who are looking for more than that, be clear and be very specific so we can minimize some of the injury on our psyche. That's what we started off this, episode by saying, some of the negative stuff that happens, and we're trying to minimize it because we know we're not going to put it away, those of us looking for relationships.
Yeah.
The other one is, remember, there are real people behind these profiles. I keep saying that because it's so easy to forget that when we easily swipe and scroll. They're humans.
Sure.
Humans. Like, it's so sad about your friend, and then she gets this text message. Just pick up the fucking phone and call, especially if you've dated the person. Be a human. Don't be an asshole.
That's really fucked up. I'm sorry.
Really
That's bothering me. You didn't even tell me this.
We just said in this podcast.
Ryan.
Right?
She's like Ryan's sister. Like, they're close,
Yeah.
I know.
People's feelings are not a source of entertainment for you. That's what I want to say. Okay, listen to this. People's feelings are not a source of entertainment for you. Make your intentions clear in a very respectful, mindful way. And just like if we wouldn't do that in person, in a physical setting, being face to face, don't do it via text message. It doesn't make it makes it actually sometimes more painful because we again fill in the spots that we don't know anything about, and we generally fill those spots up with something that's negative.
Yeah, and the getting broken up with via text message is not.
Well, that's not cool at all.
And it's so bad. Like, it isn't, it's just, come on. Like, I'm not a phone call person.
It's a cowardly thing to do.
It's super cowardly.
Super
exactly.
cowardly.
Yeah. Just phone call in person, whatever it might be. If you're like, I don't want this person to get mad, then call them. But just like, that's
practice your breaking up skills, I should say, by making the phone call. Don't be a coward, right? Don't be a coward.
Breakup coach, the dating coach.
Breakup coach. We got a lot of stuff we got to do on this one. That'll be the next episode. Amanda's available for these services, just letting you guys know. The last one is, of course, to be safe physically, but also be safe in the choices that you make with regards to sending images and pictures. So often, pictures are exchanged, and oh my God, there's so much regret afterwards when there is a breakup on how these pictures will be used. Do you remember that guy on? God, there was a show about him on, I don't know, Netflix or something, where that site he started, and he would post pictures of women that had exchanged body image pictures, and then he would just put them online. You guys
really?
He got taken to court.
Heard of things like that.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Because it was a woman who actually committed suicide, which was really sad. So he took a naked picture of her and he put it online, and then she killed herself, which is horrible. That's one extreme, but these things can happen. I wouldn't want to share a picture, and if we break up, next thing I know, it's on somebody's social media page. It's horrible, absolutely horrible.
But I feel like I'm not even gonna.
What?
I'm not even going to comment on that.
You
like,
can.
I don't want someone to stop sending me a flirty picture every once in a while.
Well, there's flirty, and here's my boobs and my face, so you can identify everything, right? I mean, there's ways of sending things where you can't be identified if and when this person loses control and does something stupid like that on social media.
Absolutely,
make it so you can't be identified.
Yeah, because once it's on the internet, it is there forever, as much as you don't want it.
It's there forever, but the younger generation, I want to say, they're so much, and they have no issues doing this. So I was, talking to one of my patients who's young, and he showed me something. I'm like, dude, what is this? He goes, oh, that's normal. That's nothing. Like pictures of their ass to each other. I'm like, as a joke, guys, and they're not, and this person was not gay. The other, just like stupidity they send to each other. And they're like, oh, this is nothing compared to what we do. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to know what else you're doing. So don't do that. If you can't put that picture on a billboard, maybe just don't send it, especially earlier on in the relationship. You don't know what the person might do. And
absolutely.
You can't be guaranteed that there's not going to be a breakup. I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being realistic. So again, to wrap this episode up, there are negative consequences to online dating on our psyche. But again, it's not going away. It is the primary way that people date today. But I hope you can review some of the tips that I shared with you and put them into practice. Just be kind and gentle and human with each other, even online, especially online. Bye, guys.
Unfuck Your Life and Relationships was recorded at High Five Studio in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Unfuck your life!